Welcome back, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us for this explainer. If you were part of the Torah-observant community right now, you have definitely felt it, the shifting sands beneath our feet. I mean, we are quite literally living in a time when societal foundations seem to be decaying right before our eyes. It's intense. But today, we are going to look at the ultimate theological anchor found in Psalm 11, because this is exactly what we need for those moments when the moral structures around us crumble and completely give way. So it really all comes down to this central question, doesn't it? Where do we look for safety when the world just completely falls apart? You can practically feel the cultural pressure building right now. The heat is getting turned way up on believers everywhere. And man, that urgency to find a refuge, it is very, very real. When the walls start caving in, where is our anchor? Well, that is exactly what we are deep diving into today. Okay, let's dive into this and see how the scriptures answer this for us. First up, we'll look at panic versus covenant shield. Then, Yahweh's holy heavenly throne. Third, the crucible of divine testing. Fourth, ultimate judgment and just reward. And we will wrap up with perfect fulfillment in Yashua. All right, kicking things off with section 1, panic versus covenant shield. Picture this. You step out of the safety of your home, right into the chaotic streets of societal panic. The enemies of the righteous are out there, operating in the shadows. And what happens? You start getting all this well-meaning advice telling you to just abandon the front lines, unpack your bags, run. But listen to David's immediate, totally unwavering declaration in Psalm 11, verse 1. He says, open quote, "In Yahweh I put my trust. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain?" Close quote. The panic is literally palpable. They want him to give up and just act like a defenseless, fluttering bird driven by nothing but pure survival instinct. Now, what's really interesting about this is the Hebrew word for trust here. It's hasiti. You see, this isn't just some vague belief. It literally means taking shelter. It means making Yahweh your actual protective fortress. David's unwavering declaration is completely anchored in this specific Hebrew concept. He has anchored his entire life inside the character and statutes of Elohim, and there is just no way he is abandoning that fortress. Look at the stark contrast here. It's practically night and day. On one side, you have this fleshly advice: run away to the wilderness, hide in the cave, just give up on the community completely. It's pure survival instinct. But then on the flip side, you have the Torah-observant stance, the covenant orientation. This is the firm decision to take shelter right inside the character and statutes of Elohim. It is a conscious decision to stay anchored, no matter what. But hey, to be fair, the advisors screaming at David, they aren't completely crazy. They see a very real threat. In verse 2, they warn him, open quote, "For look, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow on the string, that they may shoot secretly at the upright in heart." Close quote. This is the harsh reality of a compromised culture. The lawless simply don't fight fair. They are like secret snipers, operating in the dark with slander, hidden traps, and these elaborate systemic setups aimed specifically at those of us trying to keep the Torah with a pure heart. And man, that leads right into this incredibly heavy, totally cynical question in verse 3. Open quote, "If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" Close quote. Let that sink in for a second. When the basic structural pillars of societal justice, marital sanctity, and obedience to Elohim's word are just intentionally dismantled, what can we do? This is exactly the question modern believers are asking today when we watch our culture systematically decay. Moving right along to section 2, Yahweh's holy heavenly throne. Okay, let's take a collective breath here. When earthly judges are taking bribes and our social structures are visibly crumbling, we have to shift our gaze. We literally need to look away from the earthly panic and project our focus onto the absolute calm, the sovereignty, and the unshakable authority of our Creator. David absolutely shatters the panic with this jarring, powerful reality check in verse 4. Open quote, "Yahweh is in his holy temple. Yahweh's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men." Close quote. Do you see that massive shift? Yahweh is not up there pacing back and forth in anxiety. His administrative headquarters remain 100% uncompromised. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact same truth given to the prophet Isaiah. Remember, this was during a time of intense political crisis and massive national grief. Isaiah recorded in chapter 6, verse 1, open quote, "I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple." Close quote. The throne is occupied, my friends. The king is in control. Let's shift gears now to section 3, the crucible of divine testing. So from that exalted throne, the Creator is watching us. And he is watching with microscopic precision. He operates with this unblinking surveillance upon all human conduct. Psalm 11 verse 5 gives us this absolutely vital truth. Open quote, Yahweh tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. Close quote. Listen, when you face pressure for keeping the Sabbath, or you get friction at work for sticking to the dietary laws, it is not because Yahweh has abandoned you. Far from it. It's actually because he is using the friction of a lawless world to intentionally test and refine you. And what exactly is he refining in that crucible? Well, he's proving your emunah. This Hebrew concept means faithfulness. The specific trials of the righteous are designed by Elohim to prove your emunah, your unshakable faithfulness, right there under the most intense pressure. And look, this isn't some brand new concepts, right? This is tied directly back to the Torah. Yahweh explained this exact operational framework to us way back during the wilderness wanderings. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2, he says, open quote, to humble you and test you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not, close quote. The whole point of the crucible is to see if we will truly hold fast to the Torah, even when it costs us something. Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds. Ultimate judgment and just reward. We just talked about the righteous being tested, but what about the lawless? Well, they certainly won't escape the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. They have a terrifying historical destiny awaiting them. The psalmist outlines this strict boundary of judgment in verse 6, open quote, upon the wicked he will rain coals, fire and brimstone and a burning wind shall be the portion of their cup, close quote. Those who love violence and systematically abuse Yahweh's creation are living a lifestyle that is a complete abomination to his holy nature, and it leads directly to this scorching cup. So, the really crucial point here is how this connects to our biblical history. Listen to Genesis chapter 19, verse 24. Open quote, then Yahweh rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, from Yahweh out of the heavens, close quote. For anyone trained in the Torah, this explicit imagery immediately activates the historical memory of Sodom. Yahweh executed a very literal geographic demonstration of his ultimate judicial power, and that precedent stands forever. The reason this kind of judgment falls is because of the unalterable character of the king. Yahweh simply cannot look at lawlessness and call it good. Instead, as the psalmist says, he loves righteousness. Specifically, he loves tzedakot. Now, these are concrete, active deeds of justice, an absolute alignment with his covenant instructions. He loves active righteousness, you guys, not just passive survival. And here's the beautiful part. If you refuse to panic, and if you maintain that covenant integrity, you receive the highest possible blessing. The psalm ends by saying, his countenance beholds the upright. This is the definitive, ultimate fulfillment of the aeronautic blessing in Numbers chapter 6, verses 25 and 26. Open quote, Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Close quote. Bringing it all together now in section 5, perfect fulfillment in Yashua. Let's bring this amazing narrative to its ultimate resolution. You see, our Messiah lived out this exact pattern when the legal and spiritual foundations of the nation were just completely corrupted. Yashua did not flee like a bird to the mountains. He trusted completely in the heavenly throne of his Father. He was perfectly tested in the absolute crucible of suffering, proven to be entirely without sin, and as a result, he entered the immediate presence of the Father. As Acts chapter 3, verse 21 declares, quote, whom heaven must receive until the times of restoration of all things, which Elohim has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began, close quote. So what are our big takeaways from this explainer today? How do we literally stand when the pillars are shaking all around us? First, Yahweh is on his throne and he is running the universe with absolute precision. Second, the pressures you face are a process of divine testing meant to purify your faithfulness. And third, the fiery traps of the lawless have an unalterable boundary of judgment. Do not disconnect from your calling. Do not listen to the voices of cowardice. Stand your ground. I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. When the foundations crumble all around you, are you going to flee to the mountains like a frightened bird? Or will you stand firmly on the solid rock of the Torah, knowing with absolute certainty that the eyes of your Creator look directly upon you with favor? Anchor your mind in this reality, walk in uprightness of heart, and keep the faith. Until next time, keep studying and keep standing firm.